Probably study. Which one? Oh, here it is. Oh, here it is. We don't know. That'll be up to the judge. He has to set the time and the arguments. We don't know until we come in. It's kind of been holding back. They got a black card. Did you read the letter?
Okay, we'll call to order. I have 7 o'clock. We'll call to order. Roll call, please.
Daly.
Yes.
Degler. Eads.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Purdy. Sanders. Shook.
Yes.
Weber.
Here.
Zupan.
Here.
Bell.
Here.
Coffee.
Here.
Metzger.
Yes. Yes. Following our pledge to the flag, we'll have our invocation by the Reverend Matthew Freeland. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Holy God, you are the source of all that is good and true. We pray tonight for your wisdom. We are grateful for all that you have done for us, and our hearts go out to those who are affected by the storms and the tragedies here of late. We ask your wisdom especially on those who are representing us tonight, with gratitude for their service and their giving of their time. May this be a community in which we honor one another, and we honor what is good and true, and seek to serve all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. And I think I mispronounced your name. It's Reverend Matthew Freshly.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay, there are 2 sets of minutes to approve. They're both in your board books. We need to do them separately. Okay, is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes? Moved by Weber, second by Purdy. Roll call, please.
Daly.
Yes.
Degler.
Yes.
Eads.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Purdy.
Yes.
Shook.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Zupan.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Coffee.
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes. As was announced last month, there is a large slate of drainage district appointments to approve this evening. From the Brewster Rice, Rick Copeland, Coles Clark, Darrell Lang, number 2 of Mattoon, Corey Kaufman, Consolidated 4 through 12 of North Orcaw, John Haney, Holman Mutual, Joseph Haskins, Kickapoo, Clayton Walker, Little Wabash, Mark Bell, Loxa, Charles Brown, Majors, Ronald Curry, Shellhammer, Dwayne Allenbaugh, and number 1 of Mattoon and Whitley, Bruce Staley. With advice and consent, is there a motion to approve those, with advice and consent on approval of those drainage district appointments? Roll call, please.
Daly.
Yes.
Degler. Eads.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Purdy.
Yes.
Shook.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Zuno.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Coffee.
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes. Item number 2, we are in approval of the budget phase of our calendar year. This is simply, right now we are in the review and preparation of the budget. At the conclusion of tonight's process, meeting here tonight, we will recess rather than adjourn. We will be recessing until the next regularly scheduled board meeting, October the 10th at 7 p.m. 2017. Committee reports. Building and Grounds, Ms. Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Building and Grounds Committee met at 5:30 p.m. August 28th with the following members in attendance: Brian Marvin, Mark Degler, Rick Shook, Mark Weber, and myself presiding. Also attending were Monty Walters, Maintenance Supervisor, and Elaine Carpus-Gamata, Administrative Assistant. Mr. Walters updated the members on the activities of the Maintenance Department. There was no old business. In new business, the members were presented with the 2018 proposed budget for the Maintenance Department. Oops, just lost it. Mr. Marvin moved to recommend the proposed budget to the Finance Committee, seconded by Mr. Weber, and the motion carried unanimously. No miscellaneous business, and the meeting adjourned at 6 p.m. on a motion by Mr. Marvin and a second by Mr. Shook. We also have a resolution, which is in the board book, to vote on. It was approved by our committee a couple committees ago, and the resolution has now been written. And this was the resolution authorizing the sale of the real estate to Rocks, the owner of Rocks, the parking lot that we've decided to let him, to sell to him his business, as we no longer need this property. And do I have, I so move.
Moved by Purdy, second by Degler. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Daly.
Yes.
Degler.
Yes.
Yes. Marvin.
Yes.
Purdy.
Yes.
Shook.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Zuno.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Coffee.
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes.
And the meeting adjourned. I think I just said that. So, I'm
Thank you.
done.
Office and rules. Mr. Weber.
Mr. Chairman, the County Office and Rules Committee was called to order at 4:30 p.m. on September 5th with the following members present: Paul Daly, Corey Sanders, Mike Zuhum, and myself, Chairman presiding. Chairman Stan Messer also attended as ex officio. Brendan Bell was unable to attend. Also in attendance was Nancy Purdy, County Board member, Sue Reynolds, County Clerk, Karen Biddle, Supervisor of Assistants, and Elaine Carpus-Gamata, Administrative Assistant. There was an update on the tax cycle. Mrs. Biddle informed us that the assessments, if I recall this correctly, have all been taken in Charleston Township, but only about 3/4 of them had numbers put on yet. So that's about where the status of that is right at this time. There's no old business. Under new business, Mrs. Reynolds presented a request for an increase in pay for election judges. Mr. Daly moved to recommend this request to the Finance Committee, seconded by Mr. Metzger, and that passed unanimously. The members were presented with the 2018 holiday calendar. Mr. Daly moved to forward this calendar to the County Board for approval, and it was seconded by Mrs. Zuhum, and that passed unanimously. That calendar is in your packet. You should hopefully have already had a chance to read it over. and at this time I so move.
Moved by Weber, is there a second? Second by Zuhon. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Daly,
Yes.
Devler,
Yes.
Eads,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Purdy,
Yes.
Shook,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Zuhon,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes.
The members reviewed the 2018 budgets for the various offices. Mr. Metzger moved to forward these to the Finance Committee, and that was seconded by Mr. Sanders, and that passed unanimously. There's no miscellaneous business. The meeting adjourned at 4:50 on a motion by Mr. Daly, seconded by Mr. Sanders.
Thank you. Mr. Bell, is there an emergency telephone system report?
We had a meeting, and I'll have minutes next month.
Thank you. Finance Committee was called to order August 29, 2017 at 8:30 a.m. with the following members present: Brandon Bell, Corey Sanders, Brian Marvin, Mike Zuhon, Stan Metzger, Chairman presiding. Also attending were various county officials, department heads, and Elaine Carpus-Camata, administrative assistants. There was no treasury report in old business, and there was no old business. In new business, member reviews, proposed 2018 budget requests from various county officials and department heads. There was no miscellaneous business, and the meeting adjourned at 1:15 p.m. Finance Committee also met on September the 5th, 2017. Members at 5:30 p.m. Members present: Brandon Bell, Corey Sanders, Brian Marvin, Mike Zuhon, Stan Metzger, Chairman presiding. Also attending were various county officials and department heads: George Edwards, Alex Hagan, and Jordan Russell of the Weston Company, and Elaine Carpus-Camata, administrative assistant. There was no treasurer's update or no oral business. In new business, members were continued to review proposed budget requests from various county officials. Alex Hagan and Jordan Russell presented the 2016 audit to the members for review. The members were presented with 6 tax sale resolutions. Mr. Marvin moved to forward these to county boards, and it was seconded by Mr. Sanders and carried unanimously. Is there a motion to that effect at this time? Mr. Weber, second by Zuhon. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Daly,
Yes.
Devler,
Yes.
Eads,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Purdy,
Yes.
Shook,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Zuhon,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes. There was no miscellaneous business, and the meeting adjourned at 6:10 p.m. on a motion by Marvin and a second by Zuhon. The Health and Safety Committee was called to order August 28, 2017 at 4:30 p.m. Following members present: Jan Eads, Rick Shook, Mike Zuhon, Stan Metzger, Chairman presiding. Paul Daly was unable to attend. Also attending were Mark Weber, County Board Member, Dan Ensign, EMA Director, Julie Dieters with Care Center, Kelly Lockhart, Sarah Mummer, RPDC, Gloria Spears with Health Department, and Elaine Carpus-Camata, Administrative Assistant. There was no old business. In new business, the members were presented with a resolution designating the Director of the Environmental Health of the Public Health Department as the county's noxious weed authority. Mr. Zuhon moved to forward this resolution to the county board. It was seconded by Ms. Eads and carried unanimously. And at this time, is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Zuhon, second by Ms. Eads. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Daly,
Yes.
Devler,
Yes.
Eads,
Yes.
Marvin,
Yes.
Purdy,
Yes.
Shook,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Zuhon,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Metzger.
Yes. In the EMA update, Mr. Ensign updated the members of the activities of the EMA office. He presented his 2018 proposed budget for the office to members. Ms. Eads moved forward this budget to the Finance Committee for consideration. The motion was seconded by Mr. Shook and carried unanimously. Care Center update, the monthly reports were distributed to the members. Those are attached. Ms. Dieters presented the proposed budget for 2018 for the animal shelter to the members. Mr. Zuhon moved forward this to the Finance Committee, seconded by Eads, and carried unanimously. Miscellaneous business, Mr. Lockhart presented the tipping fee budget to the members. Ms. Eads moved forward this to the Finance Committee for approval. Motion was seconded by Mr. Shook and carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned then at 4:55 p.m. on a motion by Zuhon and a second by Shook. Mr. Daly, is there an insurance committee report?
Mr. Chairman, no meeting.
Okay. There is no liquor commission report. Mental health, there is no report. We will be meeting on this Thursday this week. Planning and Development Commission, Mr. Daly.
Planning and Development Committee met on August 24th. The meeting was called to order at 4:30 with the following members present: Stan Mesker, Brandon Bell, Nancy Purdy, myself presiding. Also attending with Kelly Lockhart, Noel Spence with RPDC, and Elaine Carpus-Command, Administrative Assistant. IT update: Mr. Spence updated the members on the activities of the IT department. GIS update: Mr. Lockhart updated the members of the activities of that department. There was no old business. Under new business, the members were presented with the Planning Commission budget for consideration. Ms. Purdy moved forward this budget to the Finance Committee. The motion was seconded by Mr. Metzger and was approved unanimously. The computer budget was distributed to the members. Mr. Metzger moved to forward this to the Finance Committee and seconded by Mr. Bell, and it also passed unanimously. The members were presented with the GIS budget. Mr. Bell moved to forward the GIS budget to the Finance Committee, and seconded by Ms. Purdy, and it passed unanimously. Under miscellaneous business, there was none, and the meeting adjourned at 4:50 p.m. on a motion by Mr. Metzger and a second by Mr. Bell.
The regional planning report.
And we have a regional planning meeting. The commission met afterwards at 4:45 at the regional planning office, and we had a new member. The members that were present were myself, Stan Metzger, John Doty, Dennis Mullick, Kurt Crail, Steve Kelly, Nancy Purdy, Rick Hall, and Jamie Bell. Introduction of the new member: Kelly introduced Dennis, who will be taking the place of Tim Udall on the commission. John Doty made the motion to approve the minutes of May 2017, and was seconded by Stan Metzger, and passed unanimously. Fiscal report: commission is doing very well and is in the black. We had old business, and that was under staff report. Under municipalities, Matt Toon reported that Public Works building on Old 316 is nearly finished. Sewer treatment project first phase is completed. 6 new businesses on the west side of Cracker Barrel are coming in. Every store in downtown is either full or under construction. Plans to take the bike trail all the way west to Lake Mattoon, to pay DeWitt and Marshall from 9th to 14th, and eventually 14th to Lakeland Boulevard next year. And that's moving along. And Charleston reported that they were working on their sidewalks from Lincoln to the square. Ashmore has a water project in the works, and Geronimo Energy is looking north and east of the town for solar projects. Under new business, Kelly went through each line item on his budget proposal, saying that the motion to pass the budget contingent upon the Finance Committee's decision regarding raises. It was seconded by John Doty and passed unanimously. And the next meeting will be scheduled as needed, possibly in October. And the meeting adjourned at 5:28 p.m.
Mr. Zuhon, is there a public health board report?
No report, we meet later this month.
Okay. Mr. Weber, Road and Bridge Committee.
Thank you.
Road and Bridge was called to order at 5 p.m. on August 28th, with the following members present: Travis Coffey, Rick Shook, Mike Zuhon, and myself, chairman presiding. Paul Daly was unable to attend. Also in attendance is Rick Johnson, county engineer, and Elaine Carpus-Camona, administrative assistant. There is no old business. Under new business, the 2018 proposed budget for the highway department was presented to the members. Mr. Zuhon moved to forward this budget to the Finance Committee, and was seconded by Mr. Coffey, and passed unanimously. Mr. Johnson distributed the county engineer's report to the members, and you also have a copy of that in your packet. There's no miscellaneous business. Meeting adjourned at 5:15 on a motion by Mr. Coffey, and seconded by Mr. Schiff.
Thank you. Ms. Eads with the Senior Citizens Tax Levy Committee.
Mr. Chairman, that meeting was earlier in the summer and was already reported on.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders is unable to attend this evening. Sheriff and Law Enforcement Committee. Who else on that? Mr. Rowe, you want to read that for me?
Sheriff and Law Enforcement Committee was called to order at 5 p.m. on September 5th, with the following members present: Travis Coffey, Brian Marvin, Rick Shook, myself, and Corey Sanders as chairman presiding. Also in attendance was Stan Mesker, County Board Chair, Lisa White from the Sheriff's Department, Elaine Carpus Kamada, Administrative Assistant. We reviewed the reports as usual, and under old business, Mrs. White presented a study on the jail staffing issues, and you have a copy of that in your notes there. Mrs. Kamada was instructed to place this item on the agenda for next meeting. Under new business, the members reviewed the 2018 budget. Mr. Marvin moved forward this budget to the Finance Committee, seconded by me, passed unanimously. There's no miscellaneous business. The meeting adjourned at 5:20. I'm looking on these.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders is also on Supplies and Claims Committee. Mr. Shook, I believe you serve on that. Do you know if can you tell me if there's a report on the Supplies and
I
Claims?
believe not, so.
All bills have been reviewed and taken.
Yes,
Thank you.
I beg your pardon. My apologies.
Not a problem. Caught you off guard there, and I should let you know I was going to call on you.
That's all right.
Okay. Is there any old business this evening? New business? Miscellaneous business? No reason for executive session. We have announcements of appointments again. One appointment to the Drainage District number 12 of Humboldt. One appointment to Drainage District number 1B of 7 Hickory. We'll be taking public comment again this evening. Want to remind or stress that public comment is to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Perry, first please.
Before my 3 minutes start to run, I'd like a moment to rebut some things that were said at the last board meeting, and these are from Chairman Metzger. You brought some numbers up about some of these assessments of why they were the way they were. I want to touch upon a couple of things so we kind of correct the record so you know that this really wasn't about the assessment so much as what it was, the way that it was done. The property over on, it's actually the old Podesta building over in Mattoon, the one that came in at 142. The city last week gave a $35,000 emergency fund to take care of the roof. And then I talked to the appraiser this afternoon about what the level of fixing in the basement would be. And the problem with all of this is it only comes to $237,000. And you have it on the board, market value at $359,532. I contend you have fake numbers. So it's not what it's worth, it's what you say it's worth and what it's not worth. So that's number one. The other one real quick would be the one at Keller. The other one where you told me that there was a problem with the EPA. I FOIA requested that and asked for the whole file on the property. And for some reason, there's nothing in there that says anything about FOIA, and his letter doesn't say anything about FOIA or anything about EPA. I don't have anything at all in the letter that says anything about EPA, and there could be an EPA issue. But the problem is, it's still not the numbers or why it's there. It's the idea that the guy doesn't even have to show up. He sends a letter in. He doesn't even come for a board of review hearing. I don't get it. So all I'm saying to you is, it's not about the money. It's the way we arrive at the numbers that I've got a problem with. Okay?
Okay.
Now I'm ready to talk about what I want to talk about. The issue that I'm going to touch on tonight is it has to do with the Office and Rules Committee back in the day that they had the February 2015 meeting. And what I have, and for anybody that wants a copy, we're going to be able to give you. I've got the PowerPoint presentation from Mrs. Kuykendall. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to go over a few things. It's busted in segments, and I just want to paraphrase some of the things that I'm looking at. First thing on it she talks about is she's talking about the tax rate and the EAV. For some reason, EAV is real important to you folks, and we know why. Okay? That's the first thing it starts with, and then it goes to impact on residents, impact on commercial property owners, impact on the city of Charleston, and then the legal requirements, and then ideas for corrective action. Impact on the city of Charleston. I would just read a few things out of it. It says, S&P ratings. In our view, the city's economy is weak overall. Per capita market value at just $25,700, which we view negatively because it's below 30. So we're looking for a number above 30. That's what it sounds like to me. And then it says bond legal debt margin is 8.625. Well, we know that if you raise the assessed valuation of the property, then that spread's going to get a little bit more easy and enchanting to get. So we know that the assessed valuations are, there's a plan here to kick them all up so we get below that legal debt margin so we can borrow more money. Is that what we're doing? I think it is. And then the other thing is, I look at the next section here, and we've got down here at the bottom it says legal requirements. She's saying here, failure or neglect to perform any of the duties required is punishable by removal from office, Class A. And she's talking about the county assessment officer. So we're threatening to do something to the supervisor of assessments. Well, that's fine if she's failed to do her duties, but what if she does her duty and the duty's not right because the numbers aren't right? Are we going to do something with her about that too? Last but not least, ideas for corrective action. I find it kind of strange that somebody that works for the city of Charleston sits here and picks up, you could divide the county into 4 assessment districts, and then you could get a hold of software consultants to help us use the information turned in this year before the assessor's information is stale. So what is somebody from the city of Charleston trying to point you in a direction to what to do and how to do it? Because I think that's above and beyond the call of duty. Okay? That's just how I feel. So here we got a whole plan that you guys did what you did, and that's fine. And anybody wants to see this, I'd be more than willing to share it. Last but not least, one little quick blurb. We've got the people up in Springfield looking into what's going on. I don't know whether you've got a copy of the letter, but I've distributed it tonight. We've got a House of Representatives lady that's looking into this because all 102 counties have got problems with their assessment offices. And guess what? We got one too. So that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Donaso?
I'm going to go back to some things that I've said repeatedly here, especially as it applies to the County Office and Rules Committee. I'm disappointed Mr. Sanders isn't here tonight because I had a couple questions for him, but he's not here, so maybe I'll have to do it in 30 days. So anyway, there's been an attempt by the county consistently to say that Mr. Becker is an employee of the supervisor assessment. And the reason I bring this up again is because every time I FOIA request and find new information and more evidence to suggest otherwise, I'm going to present it. And so I requested in one of my FOIA requests recently the May 4th, 2015 Office and Rules Committee meeting minutes. And since Mr. Sanders is not here, Mr. Daly was involved in forwarding a couple proposals, so maybe he can answer some questions at the end when I have them, since he was there. Mr. Sanders was at the meeting, Mr. Bell was there, Mr. Daly was there, Mr. Weber was there, Chairman Metzger was there. As you all well know, you voted on Mr. Becker's bid proposal on May 12, 2015. I have the minutes here. You approved his bid proposal, and you hired him as a contractor to do the reassessment work for the county. Now, you claim that's not what you did. You claim that he was actually hired by Mrs. Biddle's office, the supervisor assessment. For the folks out there, the reason that this is important is because if he truly was hired by the county, he was hired illegally, and it will invalidate the assessment. If he was hired by the supervisor assessment's office, like they said, it still is illegal because they didn't follow the procedure in the law. He was supposed to be a deputy. There's a lot of reasons. You could read the statutes. We brought that up before here. I know the Edgar County Watchdogs did. But what's of particular interest is the May 4th, 2015 meeting where Tyler Tech and Mr. Becker's proposal were being considered. And what had happened at the meeting, and I'm just going to read the minutes here, there's only a few lines, says Mr. Daly moved to remove the proposals for commercial appraisal, remember proposal, not employment applications, proposals for commercial appraisals from the table. The motion was seconded by Mr. Metzger. Then what happened was, it says the members reviewed the proposal for commercial appraisals from Tyler Tech in the amount of $517,782. After much discussion, Mr. Daly moved forward the proposal from Bob Becker in the amount of $115,000 for commercial appraisals to the county board for consideration, second by Mr. Weber. Motion carried. 5 unanimous, 1 abstention by Mr. Sanders. Now, if in fact Mr. Daly was an employee and hired by the Supervisor of Assessment's office, then what you have here is Tyler Tech must have been applying for that job too. So why in the world are they in front of the Office and Rules Committee? They were there because the board was considering hiring either one of those companies as independent contractors to come in here and do the work of the appraisal. It is clear there is no way he was ever hired by the Supervisor of Assessment's office. And I want to make sure everybody understands that we keep getting more and more evidence to the contrary. So the digger, you want to dig yourself deeper in a hole by sticking to that storyline and not being forthright and honest with us, then you can do that. But I just want you to know that your own minutes and the evidence shows otherwise. And it's very clear. There's no denying this. And anyone who wants, you all have copies of this if you want. I can make copies for you. So I'm disappointed in that. I'm also disappointed in the fact that, we got off track at the last meeting with Mr. Sanders.
Okay, that's been 4 minutes now, so you have 3 minutes to speak.
Well, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Dugan?
So much for the First Amendment in America, huh?
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, Rob, James, and myself, we actually paid a visit to Mrs. Biddle's office to check on some FOIA information that Rob had requested back in July. And it was about the process of the Charleston Township reassessment, how that was going. So he hadn't received that information as of 2 weeks ago, so we went in and we asked Mrs. Biddle if she'd be willing to give us that information. At that time, she stated that she couldn't, that she didn't have that information, that if we wanted it, we'd have to get that from Mr. Becker. So before we left, we asked Mrs. Biddle if Mr. Becker actually had a desk and a phone in the office, and she stated that no, he didn't, that we would have to contact him through Quarry Appraisal Service. So we did. We left her office, and then I called Mr. Becker. He answered, and after introducing myself, I asked about the information that we were looking for. He stated that it was on the DevNet system, and that Mrs. Biddle would have to give that information out to us since she's in charge of the office. I explained to him that she said she didn't know how to get the information, so I asked him if he could call her, walk her through the information or process so we could get that information that day. So he agreed that he would call her and then he'd give me a call back. So we waited about 10 minutes and hadn't got a call back, so walked across the street back into her office, and she was still on the phone, so we had to wait a few minutes. She came forward, and you could tell that she was upset that we were there once again asking for that information. She told Rob that the information wasn't complete, and she didn't feel like he had any reason to actually receive that before the property owners or the board had reviewed it. So once again, Rob told her that, it was FOIA requested and it was public information, and he did have the right for that information. So when it's all said and done, she said that I will see what I can do within the next 5 days, and walked away. She wasn't happy. So three days later, Rob got a call, the information was ready. And what I'd like to ask you is that as a citizen or a taxpayer of Coles County, is that how you would expect to be responded from? Okay? If you go in asking for information that is public information, why shouldn't you get it in a timely manner, not 2 months later? Also, if Mr. Becker is a seasonal part-time employee of the Supervisor of Assessments Office, as you, Mr. Mesker, Mr. Bauer, and Mrs. Biddle stated back in the April meeting, then why wouldn't Mr. Becker have a desk and a phone in that office? Any response to that?
No, your time's ticking though.
I've got just a couple things to touch on. Mrs. Biddle mentioned while we were there trying to get the FOIA information that she hadn't seen it, that the board hadn't seen it. So why would she say that the board hadn't seen it if you have no control over her office or the outcome of the reassessment figures? When does the county expect all the reassessments to be complete in the county?
In time to meet the calendar as is required by state law or state statute.
So this particular year, you're going to reassess only Charleston Township?
Correct.
So then the county board does realize with the resolution that you sent to the state that if you do continue with this process, once again, you will violate the law. Is that correct?
I have no comment on that, but it's been 4 minutes, so your time's up. Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Chairman, appreciate it. Just a point of clarification, at the last meeting, there was some bantering back and forth in regards to the posting of one of the meetings. And it's tough when you got 3 minutes, your time's up, and then there's a rebuttal that you can't rebut to. So some may remember that, some may not, but there was a reference that the meeting in question, and I don't remember the date on it, that it was published.
2015.
And yeah, it may have been published, I think you cited it was published in several newspapers or something to that effect. And from our perspective, when we say was the meeting published, it's in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. And that's what we're looking at. And one of the things that we have not been able to identify was that that particular meeting was published in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. It may have been published in the paper and everything, I get that. But that's just a point of clarification. I think that's what Mr. Donasso meant when he said it wasn't published, referring to that requirement. Back to the airport issue, have we made any progress on having the leaseholders pay that tax instead of the taxpayers?
I believe Ms. Biddle could answer those questions, but
I know that there has been meetings, communications, and exchanges between the airport authority and...
Safe to say there was a consensus on...
I don't know what action
Okay.
was taken. I know there's been communications between the two. I'm not sure. I was not involved in those.
Okay.
Nor is it.
If possible, if we could find out, because there were two issues there. Some property was not being taxed, and other property was being taxed, but the taxpayers were paying it while someone else is using it for a commercial purpose. And that was the issue that we took with that. And it's not uncommon. We find that in a lot of different places, which leads me to the says who with what proof. We have a lot of people that say a lot of things, and we want the proof. Our experience has been most public officials don't read the powers and duties and the statutes that they're supposed to follow. They do what they do at the meeting because we've got veterans and experienced people that have been on the board, and they just, I get that. All too often we see things that aren't being done. Mr. Bell, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for what you're doing on the 911 issue. I reread your email, and they're not using that attorney anymore for consulting. I appreciate that. I would ask that you take steps to recover that money, because that's your money. And that law firm knows they're not allowed to do it.
And I said, I know Bernie told me that he wasn't paying a retainer. So
Right. And I think that's what those
for-
invoices were. They were like a monthly retainer that was going out. There was a couple
Yes.
where they actually did something a few years ago, and it wasn't a fortune. But my point is that's a law firm that knows they're not supposed to do it. They know. You can recover the money. It's real simple. You can ask for it back, and there's a process to do that. We did that in Edgar County. We recovered the funds from the private law firm that was illegally billing the 911 agency. Within a day of the state's attorney sending the letter, the check was sent back. So the money's pretty easy to get back. So I would encourage that you try to do that. Says who with what proof? When somebody tells you something, make them prove it. Read through the statute. Read the case law, and you're going to find we get told a lot of things. We get told a lot of things by our legal counsel, and I'm not saying you told them something that's not true, but all throughout our public body history, we find things aren't being done the way they're supposed to because they just never read the law. and it's pretty easy after you read it a few times. But I really do appreciate what you're doing, because that's how it's supposed to work. Interaction, responding, you're following up, and my hat's off to you. I do appreciate that very much. Thank you much.
John Kraft. Charles Stodden.
Thank you for your time. I'd just like to ask a question tonight to Mr. Bauer. Is there any report on the ongoing legal action that's happening on the assessed valuation? Can you comment on that?
I can comment as to what's a public record. There has been a motion to dismiss filed. There has been a opposition to motion to dismiss filed, and it is in the hands of the federal judge.
Okay.
No decision has been made upon that as of this time.
Okay, on the Charleston reassessment, I'd just like to know, will that be published in the paper? Like
When
the
it's
one,
completed, as the tax cycle goes, it will be published the way the statute provides.
yeah. Well, the watchdogs found out that we needed a bigger font. Will we have a bigger font this time?
The assessor will be advised that communication will be necessary, that the font will be the correct size.
Yeah. Well, that would be nice, because I remember looking at it and I finally gave up.
Pretty small.
So that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, that's all for public comment. Is there any other public comment? Okay, is there a motion to recess until 7 p.m. of October 10th, 2017? Bell, and then second by Daigle. Roll call, please.
Daly. Degler.
Yes.
Eads.
Yes.
Marvin.
Yes.
Purdy.
Yes.
Shook.
Yes.
Weber. Zupan.
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Coffee.
Yes.
And Metzger.
Yes. Thank you. We are in recess. Thank you.
This will be the same agenda for the next meeting. See, you don't have to have public comment. They recess, this meeting is not done, they've already had public comment. That ain't gonna happen. So that's the game they're gonna play, it ain't gonna work. I will listen. Once you recess the meeting, you've had your public comment, when the meeting is concluded, there's no next public comment. Get this Did I understand right here, that recessing this meeting until the next regular meeting? So it's not adjourned? Well, I guess my question would be, so in the next meeting, if this is recessed, the next date that they just announced, this is the agenda you have to use. That would be, they would still have a closure, but yeah, recess, this would be, the reason, you had some of the recess, and when they came back with the same agenda, they would say we had public comment, that was already over, and they would treat it as a continuation of the next meeting. I just want to make sure that's not what's going I know it's recess, I know the agenda.
ridiculous.
And we're going to try to deal with it internally. All the people that visited supervisors, he's going to come back, you know, it's legal, the lawyers said it's legal, I've always done it this way.
I hate to get to agree with you.
Throw money and open the door and chuck it up the Did you see convictions? 5 years ago, I didn't mail the wire. 5 years. She pled guilty.
Last month, that week's
Mom and dog.
Of course, they didn't
Like that? Did you see today's, there's 74 going to be tossed, 10 more.
One got tossed, what, last Friday? You know, that person pled guilty, he got sentenced to 27 years. He probably had all the dope on him.